Alright. Hello, and welcome to Week 8 of Robotics for All's Scratch online curriculum. This week, you guys are going to be working on a final project that's going to culminate everything you've learned over the past 8 weeks. This final project is very flexible. You can really make any sort of story or game that you want, but there's a few things that you have to include. Your project should include a movable character sprite, background music, multiple sprites interacting with each other, maybe thinking and talking, multiple backdrops, some sort of challenge like dodging projectiles or jumping over gaps, at least one variable, the cloning of a sprite, at least one custom MyBlock, and the use of messages. This may seem like a lot of requirements, but I think you'll find very quickly that a lot of this stuff will come up naturally in whatever kind of story or game you want to make. So today in this video, I'm going to go over my final project as an example for you guys, and we're also going to go into the code and see how it works. Alright, here we are in the game. Looks like I need to go remember to pick up my laptop before school starts. Awesome, I got 100 points. My score. Alright, looks like it's time to walk to school. Wow, yeah, it is quite a nice day today, isn't it? Oh, looks like it's class time. Oh no! Here's baseballs! I need to dodge them! And oh, I lost points because I hit a baseball. Looks like I gotta keep dodging them. Wow, I'm glad that's over. What a wild day indeed. Okay, that's my example of the final project. Let's go ahead and jump into the code to see how it works. So there's a lot of things going on here, but I'll just break down what sprites we have first and the different backdrops. So we have these two sprites that you saw here, which are like our transition sprites. So these are costumes I made myself, which is just a black square and text in the middle to act as little scene transitions. So we're going to hide these, and there's also one for the end as well. And then for sprites, we have the baseball sprite, but notice you can't actually see the baseball sprite, and that's because it's currently hidden down there near the bottom. And then we also here have the laptop sprite, which shows up in the beginning of our game, right here. So let's go ahead and break down the code and see how it works. So first of all, the most important part of this is our actor here, this Avery walking sprite. Now, you'll notice that I can actually control this sprite to move around in any direction I'd like. And that's because of the code we have going right here that's highlighted. So this code basically is a forever loop and 4 different ifs. And each of these ifs are checking for one of the arrow keys on my keyboard being pressed, and it's going to change the position of this sprite by that. And you notice that here we have it changing the direction when the left and right arrow keys are pressed. That's what causes our sprite to change the direction when I hit those keys. And something else to notice here, I have this multiplication operator in here with a variable called speed. As you can see here on this, when flag is clicked, we have that speed set to 1. So at the beginning of the program, your character is going to be moving at this speed, which is basically essentially a speed of 1. But the reason why I use a variable for this is so that when we get to the baseball diamond, the speed increases so you can more easily dodge the baseballs. Now, a few of you are probably wondering, how did we get this character to have animations when they're walking, like her legs are moving, her arms are swinging? Well, how we did that was because of the sprite that came with Scratch, it actually has a few costumes. And these costumes are basically different stages of walking. So very easily what we can do is we can have it cycle between each of these costumes, and you'll notice that it looks like she begins to walk. So that actually is coded by this line down here. Basically it's saying if any of the arrow keys are pressed, right, up or down, right or left, if any of these are being pressed, it's going to swap to the next costume and then wait 2 seconds. So what this does now, if I'm pressing any key, any arrow key, it's going to look like she's walking, and just really because it's just cycling through the costumes. So you can pick a sprite like this if you want, or if you'd like, you can try to draw your own character and have these different stages of walking for them. It's up to you. Now the next most important thing is this when flag is clicked block over here. This one resets the size of our actor, tells him to move to that starting point, which is just beside the bed here, point in the correct direction, and it also makes them think I need to remember to grab my laptop. So how do we grab the laptop? Well, that one's also quite simple. If we go over here, it's a when flag is clicked block, forever if touching laptop. So in this case, what it's doing is it's going to trigger whenever we're running over the laptop, whenever our sprite is touching a laptop, it's going to say, press space to take the laptop. And you'll notice here that if I walk over it, it'll show the thinking bubble. If I walk off of it, after a second, it'll go away. All right, but then inside this forever loop, we have a second if that's saying if we're touching the laptop and the space key is pressed, it's going to broadcast this message called laptop taken. So you have to hold it down for a second while you're over this laptop because currently it's on this block here, it's thinking, and then it'll check this if, and then at that point, she'll grab the laptop, like that. And what grabbing the laptop also does is it changes our score by 100. So now you can see our score is at 100 now. Now it's going to broadcast this message called laptop taken. And remember, messages are an event that is transferred to all different sprites in the program. So in this case, on our laptop sprite, we have this very simple piece of code here. When I receive laptop taken, hide. So when I take the laptop disappears. And also, when flag is clicked, it's going to show the laptop, just so I can click the flag and it will appear again. So the laptops are quite simple. Now the next thing that happens here is when I walk to the right edge of my screen right here, where my cursor is, you'll notice that it swaps the backdrop. And she also moves to the other side of the screen, so it looks like I'm walking forward and the screen has swapped. And that seems like it would be quite complicated, but it's actually quite simple. So let's go ahead and look at the code for that. So here we are right here, that's the code. So first of all, when flag is clicked, it's going to switch our backdrop to bedroom 3. So that's our default one, that's our starting position. And there's another forever loop and a condition, if you're touching the edge. So if touching the edge means if you're touching any edge of the game surface. So what I need to do is I need to add a second if, or I could have put these in one condition, but I decided to split it up. If our X position is greater than 240, remember 240 is all the way on the right side of the screen. If it's greater than that, it's going to swap to the next backdrop. And it's going to teleport my character from over here to over here. And notice how the Y position is not a number, but it's actually the Y position of my character. So for example, if I sort of break the rules here and I'm going to float up and walk across the screen from over here, you'll notice I appear over there on the other screen as well. So my Y value doesn't change as I swap scenes. And each time I swap scenes, it also triggers a few things to say. So for example, if I swap over to the next one here, which is the colorful city backdrop, you'll see this block light up down here, right here, when backdrop switches to colorful city, and my character will say, "What a nice day today." And then there's another one when it swaps over to the chalkboard background. It says time for class. Now this one, it also broadcasts this message, another message just like our laptop taking message, except this one's called class start. So this is a pretty important one because what class start does is it causes our little transition screen to fade on. How did I fade it exactly? Well, I used a my block. So this is the definition here for the my block. You should recognize this from the day that introduced this. Basically what it's doing is it's using this ghost effect on the sprite, which is a fully black transitioning image. And what it does is it changes the ghost effect by a certain value that you enter in when you call the fade function. And what it does is it repeats that a certain number of times, and then it'll cause it to fade in and out. So I used a my block for this because you notice I actually use fade twice, the once to fade in and once to fade out. So I need to use that block twice, so instead of repeating code, I instead defined a function for it, or a my block for it, and then use that twice to save on some code there. So whenever sees the class start, when she enters the chalkboard scene, it's going to fade, meaning fade in, so it's going to show it, wait 4 seconds, and then while this is still covering the screen, it's going to swap to the baseball backdrop. Then it's going to fade out, and so we can see the backdrop scene, and then it's going to broadcast class end. All right, so what does class end do? Well, class end, if we go back inside of our main sprite here, it's going to firstly increase the speed of our character. So remember back when we were just defining how our character moves around, the speed was set to 1. But now we're going to set it to 2.5, which means your character is going to be moving a lot faster, almost like she's running to try to get away from the baseballs. And this is also where she thinks, oh no, here comes the baseballs, I need to dodge them. That message shows up there. Now, how did the baseballs work? Well, that's probably one of the coolest parts about this program. So here we are inside the baseball, and notice here it says when the backdrop switches to baseball 1, it's going to go to this position. So let's go ahead and show our little mock baseball down here and tell it to go to this location. So there you go, it starts right here in this corner. And what happens when it switches to baseball 1 is that this forever loop is going to trigger. And there's 2 different repeats in here with moves. And if you just look at this for a second, it's going to repeat this move many, many times. And it's going to move across to this side of the screen, swap direction, move back across, swap direction again. And because it's in a forever loop, it's going to go back and forth like that. So this baseball is just going to sit here and do that. This baseball's not going to do anything else. But then how do the baseballs go up and start attacking our actor? Well, let me swap to the baseball background there. Well, how that happens is through clones. So I have a second when backdrop switches here, and what it's going to do is going to repeat 20 times. It's going to create a clone, and then it's going to wait a random amount of seconds. That's why our baseballs kind of come out sporadically and makes it harder for them to dodge. So it's going to create a clone of itself, which means it's going to create a clone of a baseball, and then it's going to broadcast the baseball's end once it's already shot 20 baseballs at us. So how does it fly up the screen then? Well, that's quite simple. So it's going to say when I start as a clone, meaning when a baseball is cloned, it's going to show the sprite, because remember normally the sprite is hidden so you can't see it. It's going to show it, point it in direction 0, which is straight upwards, and then it's going to repeat until it's touching the top edge, move forward 15. So it's going to keep on just moving forward, moving forward, moving forward until it reaches the top edge of the screen. And once it reaches that point, that means it's gone, it's touched the screen, it's out of the screen, so it's just going to delete the clone. So that's what a whole lifetime of a clone looks like. And then we're going to launch 20 of them. So once we've launched the 20, then it's going to broadcast baseball's end. So what does baseball's end do? Well, 1, inside our actor, it triggers the actor to say, whew, glad that's over, what a wild day, to sort of finish up our program there. And what the baseball's end message also does is it's received by this other transitioning slide that says the end. And what it's going to do is going to wait 3 seconds, so give you some time before the program ends. And then it's going to make use of that fade my block again. Because it's in a different sprite, we have to define it again. So we're not really saving on a lot of code, but I just decided to copy it over just to make sure it is exactly the same. And then also these are here just to make sure that this transition is in front of all the other sprites, is at the front layer, and that it's completely visible when we start. All right. So that is what my final project is. Your final project could look like anything you really want. And it's up to your imagination to discover how you want it to be and how you want it to look. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask your teacher, and rewatch this video from the beginning. Hopefully it could give you some sort of inspiration about it. And have fun with your final project and make it really, really cool. Once you finish your final project, you're going to be asked to show it to everyone in the class on the second meeting of this week. So as soon as you're done, be prepared to explain your code just like I did here. And don't forget, have fun with it, be creative, and really just let your imagination go wild.